It was unclear what the banged-up Knicks were expecting in Detroit last night, but they probably felt pretty good about the game as they built a 13-point lead midway through the third quarter. But that's when a certain Piston put his foot down on the accelerator and revved his team back into the game. While he's been toiling in relative obscurity in the Motor City, it's time to figure out, how good is Cade Cunningham? At a quick glance, we see Cunningham is turning in an all-star level year in the box score, and he is the best player on a team that improved by at least 30 games this season. His best area is in the mid-range, where he ranks 14th in the league with a minimum of 2.5 shots per game. And it's this kind of play, a tough 17-footer with a big man in his face to end the game early, that shows us he's willing to be that guy. He's got carte blanche to run as many pick and rolls as he likes, and Jalen Duren is a common dance partner. He's never going too fast, and when the defender goes under the screen set so high, Duren just flows right back into another screen. Cade does a good job to rub shoulders and force McBride to get behind him. This is a good open 15-footer, and Cunningham knows Duren is on his way to clean up any errant shots. If we're looking for shots that would elevate him into superstar status, this is a great example. As the possession fell apart because of Cade's bad pass, and we'll get to his passing soon, the shot clock starts winding down, and the Pistons need him to save the day. Great attack on the catch to maintain his advantage, keep McBride on his side until he can get to one of his favorite spots. The tough midi fadeaway over the contest is a great sign that Cade is on his way. The Pistons will run a double ball screen, and Cade is good at attacking to his left. He's got complete control of this possession as he probes the defense, realizes he's got a height advantage, and gracefully fades the dotted line jumper over McBride. Another thing I like about him is that he's not concerned with protecting his stats, unafraid to take the long end of quarter heaves. And the best part about this is that he had a great internal clock and didn't throw this shot up too early, milking the clock to the last tick and almost making the 32-footer. The Knicks insisted in guarding him with a much smaller player, and Cade is very good at getting to his spots with minimal effort, taking what the defense is giving him, and then another contested midi fadeaway for a bucket. Cade is a little below average with his three-point shooting, and part of the reason is he shoots more pull-ups than off the catch. I like how the Pistons ran blind pig with the nail pass into backdoor cut. I wish they would have done the dribble part of the DHO here, but they flipped the screen, and with 9 seconds on the clock, I'd like to see Cade explore a hezzy to get by Precious first. Instead, he signals early that he's hopping into the shot with the right foot plant, and it gets blocked. He's almost 5 points better on catch-and-shoot threes, and I'd encourage him to find more in transition like this. It also helps when the Knicks don't pick up the best player on the team. While he's a great mid-range shooter, no doubt, here's one where I wish he would have tried his hezzy game to get into the lane. He would have probably lured the help from Tucker and gotten an open dime for Thompson or a lob for Stewart. This is a great possession for him, especially because the Knicks had gotten that 13-point lead and the Pistons could not afford to take a bad shot. It still doesn't make sense they put Bridges on Schroeder and not Cade, who patiently probes the defense, gets both feet in the lane until the defense got in his way, and then just elevates over McBride again with a slight fade for an easy bucket. He puts the finishing touches on 12 straight points by taking advantage of Tucker worrying a little too much about McBride and not the most important thing, the ball. With a little space, he can pound the dribble into the shot with good rhythm, and now the Knicks have to be worried. While there are a few things Cade needs to work on, there's no question he's well on his way. And I often find that the best way to evaluate players is by being at the game and seeing them play live, which is why you need to download SeatGeek. It's the #1 rated ticketing app for everything from concerts, sporting events, and the theater. I've used them countless times, including the U2 concert at the Sphere, and I enjoyed it even more knowing I got the best deal possible. Their rating system makes it easy to figure out where the best value is, and I've got you covered. Use my code BBALL10 and you'll always get 10% off your order. There's a reason we've been partners for years and years. They're simply the best, and now you can share in that excellence. Don't worry about being called a geek, it's cool these days, and use my code BBALL10 to save. If we examine how he shot from around the rim, we'll see a key reason why they won this game, as he hit 8 out of 10 shots. They quickly realized that Brunson wouldn't be able to offer much resistance at all against him, and I like the off-foot finish to get it up quick just in case Cat tried to contest, which he didn't. They clear out the side again to let Cade cook against Brunson, and he was so shocked they didn't send a double that he clearly fouls Brunson on his way to the hoop, but perhaps this is a sign of Cade's stature that the refs don't call it on him and he lays it in. It's always a good play to get a player sprinting out of the corner into a handoff. You can see it gets McBride immediately trailing from behind, and now Cade's heading into a pack of long defenders. To be able to half hook this straight in with some arc makes this one of the more difficult types of finishes he'll have all season. On this play, they run that same twist pick and roll we saw earlier, and Cade puts McBride in jail above the free throw line. However, he lets him get back in front and then tries the quick pull, but is a little too late getting it up to his set point as McBride is able to pull his arms out of the way. And although he kind of gives up on the play in order to pout to the official about not getting a superstar call, I was happy to see him quickly drop it in order to hype up his teammate who saved the possession. The Pistons generated some great shots for Cade on inbounds plays, and as Cade comes off the pin down looking for the handoff, he expertly reads McBride is out of position and cuts back door, using his arms as leverage that rides the line between legal and illegal. It gets him open, nice pass from Duren, and strong finish from Cunningham. This time they catch Deuce trailing behind Cade on the handoff, and he never lets McBride recover, turning the corner, and watch how he gathers at the same time he plants the right foot. This quick release catches the defense by surprise and a beat slow, allowing a nice half hook to drop clean through. I like how this zoom action out of Horns was shaping up. Cade slips his pin down in order to get McBride down low in the post. They should have given it to him, but they try to flow into the handoff and the play falls off the rails pretty quickly. Now that the shot clock is winding down, Cade has to save the day again. Great read to see Precious too close and turn too far to the sideline, crossing over to get right into the middle, and great to see him finish this easy one at the rim. The reason it was great is because on the season, he has not been great in the restricted area. In fact, it's the main reason he can't be considered a superstar just yet. Out of 34 players who average at least 5 shots a game in the restricted area, Cade ranks 34th. And the montage of shots that he misses from this close can make a coach pull out his hair, put down his glasses and rub his nose, or just say out loud, "Can you hear me shaking my head?" I had to bring friend of the breakdown Ku Khahil onto the show. He's the host of the Locked On Pistons podcast, and stay tuned at the end for the rest of our Pistons discussion.
He has to become a much better rim finisher. He's not a good finisher right now at the rim. Last I checked on Synergy, I think he was in the 18th percentile, so he still needs to get much better at the rim. But this is another thing I got to ask him a few days ago was, about turning some of those looks at the rim into maybe some floaters or some hook shots like he's been doing. And he spoke about that. That was something he really worked on all offseason, was he understood he had to get better at the rim, and he felt like a way he could get better at the rim is just eliminating some of the tough attempts and turning it into floaters and some post-ups into a hook shot from the 3, 4, 5 foot area and trying to draw free throws.
It even reared its ugly head in the crucial part of the fourth quarter of this game. The good news is that he can and should improve in this area. And if he's looking for a focus this offseason, restricted area finishing is the place he must start at. I also like that he was being a great teammate, not assuming Thompson would make the layup and following the ball to save the possession with an acrobatic tip in. Let's talk about his passing for a minute. You don't average 9 assists per game and not be a pretty good passer, and that's what he is. His usage percentage is almost 12 points higher than the next player on the list, so he's going to rack up numbers. Slipping pocket passes out of the pick and roll is the baseline for any player in the NBA, and it demonstrates the one-handed sideways flick between 2 defenders that allows Duren a clean run to the basket. This one is a little more tricky as Tobias Harris gets a flare screen and the pass needs to loop over the defense and be there on time and on target so the shot has the highest chance of going in. But the other weakness in his game is turnovers. He ranks 7th highest in turnover ratio, and it's mainly due to his errant passing. The Knicks screwed this up by sending 2 defenders to help in the post, and it opened up a cut by Thompson, but Cade doesn't get the ball high enough and it hits the rim for a turnover. He'll also get stuck in problematic positions with no solution, like drifting in the air to his left and then trying to throw the ball back to his right. Yikes. Again, he can make the simple and correct reads to players who are open as he throws a nice 30-foot bounce pass on the money to lead to the transition dunk. And I like how he sensed the help coming down to double near the baseline and then used his height advantage to throw a 2-handed twister that gets a wide open 3 for Hardaway Jr. He's not going to throw no-look 30-foot skip passes to the corner like Luka or Jokic or LeBron, but he will be able to connect on the short ones that are right in his immediate view when he garners the attention of an extra defender, and I'm glad he made this pass instead of trying to force up a shot like we'd seen in other games. But he can be careless with his reads in the pick and roll as well, not knowing the personnel he's up against as Bridges has a ridiculous wingspan and you simply can't risk throwing a bounce pass anywhere near him. When the play presents itself in front of him and there's some space, he's fine, getting another dime with a one-hander to the open player in transition. I like that Detroit runs a lot of get action, and while Cade does get the assist, Schroeder does all the work, and all players that have Cade's role in an offense get multiple assists like this each game. And I guess there's no more code that says you shouldn't shoot the ball at the end of a decided game like this, and he gets one more dime when the Knicks had given up. One thing I noticed about his turnovers is that he'll often get his passes deflected by the primary defender, and I feel like he relies on his size and doesn't get clever enough with eye gaze and ball fakes to deliver passes around defenders who are going to be ultra focused on stopping him as the primary weapon in the Pistons offense. If he cleaned this up and also tightened his handle a little bit more, the turnovers would come down, especially during crunch time of games the Pistons could win, and we'll see his stock, along with Detroit's win count, rise. Until that improvement happens, he's not quite ready to lead the Pistons beyond where they are now, a sixth-place team in the weaker Eastern Conference that won't be favored to get out of the first round. Let's talk about Cade Cunningham, because that's the name of the game right now. We've been talking about how good he is and how good he will be since he got drafted. So what do you see about his game? I mean, what I'm watching now recently is a guy who plays at his own pace, you know, in that sort of LeBron mold, I suppose, right? Kind of at his own pace, controls the possessions. I'm not so sure, like, okay, where do we rate him? We talked about Jason Tatum being in the top, I guess, 10, top 7, where he is. Where would you put Cade Cunningham in the top, rankings right now in the NBA?
If we're going just off this year, because I know a lot of rankings have to do with what have you proven to us over time, and then also this year, so you don't have like 1 year wonders that, flame out, whatever. But if we're just going off this year, I think he's been a top 15 to 20 player in the NBA. I think that's how I've seen some people have him much higher, which obviously I don't think any of us would be, too upset about people having him higher than that. But trying to be objective and fair, I would say probably around top 15 to 20th player in the NBA. I think his impact on both ends of the floor for the Pistons is something that separates them from different offensive type engines that can't really give it on the defensive end. I think that's really separates himself and kind of impacts the game. But yeah, I would say around top 15 to top 20 this year. I would expect him to be an all NBA team.
I'm glad that's pretty realistic to me, because I'm watching him and he has a lot of the hallmarks of a top 10 player. But I do feel like there are still some things along the margins that he can improve on, right? And kind of be a little bit more effective. I think shooting wise, not that he has to get above, he's around league average from 3-point percentage on 6 attempts per game, which is good. And that's enough for the kind of gravity they're going to need from him. But I do feel maybe the other shots, the other kind of finishing stuff could get a little bit better. And it's hard to imagine he can kind of tighten up the passing a little bit, because he's averaging almost 10 assists a game, right? Which is a lot. But I do feel like, there is a little bit there, which is actually really encouraging in some way, because that means there's even more upside to this guy who's scoring, over 25 a game, is an all-star, and is ready to, really assume the mantle. Was this a lot about just improving the players around him as much as it is him improving himself?
I think it's a bit of both. So I've talked with Cade's brother and his trainer the last 2 off seasons. I got to ask them about this kind of thing. So when just talking about himself, they know that one of the main things he had to translate to the NBA that he had to work on was the pull-up 3-point shooting that he had at Oklahoma State. That was something that was not there for him the first year of his career, and then kind of left him a little bit in the third season. Started to see a little bit towards the end of the year, but he hadn't really unlocked it completely. And this year, he had a bit of a cold stretch at the end of January, beginning of February, that kind of sunk his 3-point percentage down. But for the most part this year, he's been taking a lot more pull-up threes, and he's been hitting a lot of pull-up threes, which is really unlocking the game for him. He's kind of traded. I got to speak with him last week about this. He spoke about how he's traded some of these long 2s for 3s instead, which I think has been a really good decision to help him become more efficient. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think the other thing too is he has to become a much better rim finisher. He's not a good finisher right now at the rim. Last I checked on Synergy, I think he was in the 18th percentile. So he still needs to get much better at the rim. But this is another thing I got to ask him a few days ago was, about turning some of those looks at the rim into maybe some floaters or some hook shots like he's been doing. And he spoke about that. That was something he really worked on all offseason, was he understood he had to get better at the rim, and he felt like a way he could get better at the rim is just eliminating some of the tough attempts and turning it into floaters and some post-ups into a hook shot from the 3 or 5 foot area and trying to draw free throws. He knows that's the area that he has to get to. I think he's been much better on floaters. Last I checked, again, he was in the 79th percentile on those. And on hook shots, I believe he was around 73rd percentile. So he has really good touch in the in-between area. So taking more of those, I think, have helped him a lot. The next part of his game that he has to improve on is drawing fouls at the rim and converting some of those looks. He has to become a better finisher at the rim, and he has to draw more free throws to become a more efficient player. As far as the team around him, I think that plays a huge part in it. People don't understand that didn't watch the Pistons. I don't blame them, but didn't watch the Pistons the last few years. The roster they had was truly horrific. They didn't have any shooting. They didn't have any spacing. They were playing Marvin Bagley, James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, Isaiah Livers. Like, those are their top minute getters. And two of those guys, I mean, Killian's back in the league somewhat. One guy's out the league. These guys weren't NBA players, and they were top minute getters for the Pistons. So he didn't have any spacing. He didn't have anything to really help him out. And when you're that kind of guy who is that offensive hub, who really thrives when you have space to get to where you want and create openings for others, if you don't have it, it really just makes everything harder on yourself. And so I think that had a big thing to do with it. Getting Tobias an actual modern 4 in 2025 instead of trying to force Isaiah Stewart as a 4-man or an undersized 3 as a 4. Like, they actually got a legit 4 now, spacing out. Malik Beasley, who's having one of the best shooting seasons I think we've maybe ever seen. I saw Zach Lowe tweet this out the other day. Of all guards to take, I think it was 11 attempts per 36. Only one other guy has shot 42% from 3. Steph's done it 5 times, and Malik Beasley's, which Steph is crazy. He's just insane. But Malik Beasley's doing that right now. So adding Malik, adding Tobias, and then adding THJ, that just provides a level of spacing to where guys can't be pinching hard at the nail every single drive Cade has. They have to respect the shooters, and if they don't, he's a great enough passer to then constantly make them pay for when they do. And this time, guys are hitting shots instead of missing them. So I think it's a balance of both, but definitely adding quality players, I think, probably is the bigger thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't deny that when you're watching the teams from the last couple of seasons, it's just hard. It's a slog. I worry that he kind of carries a little bit of a cloud over his head sometimes, where it feels like Cade's got the whole world, the weight of his world on his shoulders. And maybe even now that they're winning, but it does seem like I'd love to see him maybe have a little bit more joy on the court. But I suppose that's sort of his game face, right? That's how he plays all the time, no matter good or bad.
Yeah, he's a very this team is full of just like laid back guys who don't show emotion unless they're like really pissed off or the refs really make them mad. Like, Cade's been getting more animated as of late, but most of the time, he's more so just laid back and kind of just stoic face all the time. He's been getting more frustrated with the refs though than I've ever seen him. He's been getting pretty animated.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, I just did a video on SGA getting fouls. And, people are always upset that he's some sort of foul merchant. And when you go through the fouls, it's like the referees would get fired if they did not call these fouls. They're like doing on his arm. Now, part of that is the shiftiness that what Cade doesn't really operate in terms of like SGA does in terms of changing pace. But one thing that I think maybe Cade could work on as well would be what SGA does really well is the pulling up more quickly than the defense is prepared to defend, where either off foot finishes, which I do think Cade does. But there's a little something there he could probably vary, I feel like, around the rim, which is to your point about just getting better at finishing and maybe finding some shots that are maybe slightly farther out from the rim and not getting so stuck underneath where he can't finish but then can't draw the foul. Do you feel like there are other ways that he can kind of get more free throws? Because I worry that, the way his game is, he's so smooth that ultimately he's probably going to have some cap on the amount of free throws he's going to get.
I think the main thing, and I've been very vocal about this. I mean, I've texted his trainer Ashton I text him all the time, but I always am teasing bro, please get him to do this, man. You got to tell him Ku said to do that, just messing with them. But I think the low pickup point would really help him. He's starting to do that a lot more lately, and he's had a few 10+ free throw games over the last 3 weeks. He had 13 the other night, 12. He's been getting a lot more free throws as of late, and I think a lot of it could be one. He could try to start flopping more. He could try to just really sell calls more. He doesn't really do that much. He tries to just play through it and just score the ball, which don't blame him, but you could try to sell some calls more, scream when you get hit, whatever, that kind of stuff. But I think the main thing on drives, which you see Jalen Brunson do, you see, like you mentioned, SGA do. These guys constantly, when they're driving, they are constantly having a low pickup point where when they pick up the ball is almost touching the ground and their arms are completely extended. So anytime you show the ball and the defense reaches down, they're slapping your arms and you're just ripping up through it. And that's how they get a ton of their fouls, from just having low pickup points and ripping through defenses. And as soon as you show the ball to defenses, I mean, you've been coaching a long time. You show the ball to the defense, they're going to reach for it. They're going to want to get the ball. If you show it and just rip through, you get a lot of contact on that. That's how I know Jalen Brunson gets a ton of his free throws from even jump shots, from just ripping through on jump shots. So I think that's something he could really do. Like I mentioned, he's done it a little bit more lately, and he has been drawing more free throws. I just feel like a lot of times on his drives, he tries to tuck it in like a running back, which you do secure the ball, and he is strong enough. That does help him. But when you have it tucked in like a running back, I do feel like it makes it harder for refs to call it, because everyone's swiping. You can't really see if they're hitting the ball or anything, and you kind of just have to rely on hearing if you hear a smack or something kind of. It's harder to make those calls. When you extend it and you show your arms, it's really easy to see them just knock your arm and you get a free throw. So I think that's the biggest thing he could add to his game, is to have lower pickup points and just extend his arms more in general, like on drives. Even if it's a high pickup point, just have your arm showed to the defense and just rip through wherever the defense is at. I think that could really help him.
That's interesting. I mean, for what it's worth, I'm actually kind of against the short hop gathers, because you lose steps because you gather it so quickly. But there's no question that you can also then, as it's extended, lure the defender into slapping, which, again, with the SGA thing, it's just remarkable how often they're just putting their arm across his chest and they leave it there. And he has a second where he can then, when he goes to shoot it, they're just raking down. And, again, it's different. And it's interesting why they do that against SGA versus other players. It's unclear. And while the coaches are also complaining, it's on my mind, which I bring it up. I know we're talking about Cade, but the coaches get all upset. And I'm like, what are you upset about? You got to tell your players to be better disciplined on defense. So, but I would like, I guess ideally, it would be great to see him get up to 8 or 9 attempts per game from the free throw line. For what it's worth, the last 10 during this stretch of 8 games where they've won 8 in a row, I'm just looking at his numbers. He's still at 5.1 attempts per game, which is about what he's doing for the whole season. But his field goal percentage has perked up a lot. He's at almost at 51% overall and 43% from 3, which is another one of those things. And then he's still maintaining 9.7 assists per game and 6 rebounds. So he's really got that all around game and is that guy. Do you see any room for more roster improvements going forward into next year?
Yeah, I think the 2 areas that they'll try to improve on is the 4 position. I think Tobias is a player that has been really good for them, but is an obvious area of eventually you'd like to move, upgrade at. And I think Tobias, as he ages, he really loves playing in Detroit. He wanted to be here. He has family ties here. I think it's likely he retires in Detroit. So I think he's going to be fine just segueing eventually into like that bench role. As that veteran. Doesn't mean he's not going to play, but he'll, go to that 6-man, maybe 7th-man role. And they need to upgrade that 4-man position with a real 2-way player. That's what I would look for. The other position is really like, what's your decision on the 2 guard? Like, do you think Jaden Ivey and him are the backcourt of the future? If so, then okay, then I guess you got it. If you don't think so, if you think that Jaden Ivey maybe is a 6-man off the bench, or you'd like to have a more like an elite level scorer at that position, I think that would be the next place of upgrading for the Pistons. But I think they got Cade locked down as their point guard. I think they obviously are going to start Asar from here on out as their wing, whether it's at the 2 or the 3. And they probably are going to lock down Duren with how he's played the last month. There were some questions about that for a while, but he's really picked up the last month to where I could see them kind of being okay with rocking with Duren moving forward at the 5. I think the main area, what they need to do is they need someone else on Cade's level. They need someone else, at least offensively, that can create or can score like Cade and can create advantages, not just for themselves, but then also create advantages for others. They don't really have that right now on a consistent basis, especially at an elite level. So I think that's the main thing they got to do. They got to get another sidekick, 1A, 1B kind of thing. My dream get, now, I like heavy emphasis on dream. It's a dream get. Like, if the New Orleans Pelicans ever actually want to blow it up, if they could get Zion, I would be absolutely ecstatic at a lower price because of his injuries or whatever. If they want to like auction off of him, I would be ecstatic about that. But that kind of thing, they need like an offensive heavy 4, I think, that could really take the pressure off of Cade and kind of operate with the ball in their hands. I think that would be great for them.
Now, there was no one more frustrated than me to see Jaden Ivey go down the way he did after playing as well as he had been playing. Can you and just Cole Anthony is he's not in the NBA because of his overwhelming talent. He's in there because he hustles but for what it's worth, and when I coach, it's like I don't encourage diving on the ball for loose balls. And one of the not even the main, but one of the big reasons is because I'm sure everyone listening, Ivy was in between Cole Anthony and the ball. That's not the time you dive for a loose ball, and he took out his knee, right? It was what was the exact injury again? Was it an ACL?
No, it was, I believe it was a broken fibula or a broken tibula or something along those lines.
Right. So he's almost lucky in that sense that that will heal and he'll be fine. Do you see a lineup eventually where they can start Thompson, Ivy, and Cade, and I guess Tobias alongside a center?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Right now, what the starting lineup they're out with right now with Cade, Asar, THJ, Tobias, and JD, Jalen Duren, that is. That before this past game against the Celtics, I don't know what the exact net rating is right now, but before the game, it was plus 9.1 in like 200 plus minutes. They were just obliterating teams. I think the bigger question was, can Asar and Duren play together? They're both non-shooters. Can you create an offense around them to where it's, you're going to thrive? And they have done that. They're both incredible, or I'd say pretty good playmakers. JD is a good passer for his position. I think Asar is an incredible passer, an incredible playmaker. They both have high processing, can make reads out of the short roll, all that kind of stuff. So I think that really helps with it. So I think really you would just swap THJ out for Ivy, and you would probably have the same level of impact because Ivy's just more dynamic of a player. They would probably play even faster than they are right now. And Ivy does provide a level of ball handling that THJ just doesn't provide. I do think Ivy is more of an elite off-ball scorer. I still have questions about him as an overall on-ball creator, how good he's going to be at that. But I don't have any questions about how good of an off-ball player he is. If you look at his cuts, I think he's like 93rd percentile. His rookie year, he was like the 88th percentile in open catch and shoot threes. He was shooting really well from three again this year. So feeding off of gravity, he can do that. He can play off-ball, play in transition, cut to the rim, all that kind of stuff. Off-ball player, I think he's a great scorer. I think the bigger question with Ivy is just if he is your 2A, if he is the starting guy next to Cade, can he develop the on-ball juice to where Cade does have that help, one, as another creator, and two, when Cade leaves the floor, you can trust him to be that on-ball creator for the team.
For sure. And I'm observing that right now with the Lakers where they'll let Luka. So, obviously offense tends to be you try and create a small advantage and then build into a big advantage, and that becomes a shot. And so you can see Luka at any moment he wants can create a small advantage, just like Cade Cunningham can. And then when they kick it and then it goes one more to, for instance, the Lakers, it's LeBron, who now has an even bigger advantage on that catch and can just be that player. It's unfair, literally, on offense for the Lakers that LeBron gets to have those opportunities now, where it used to be him having to do all that work. So, but we'll have to see. I mean, Ivy, I've seen a little bit of that, and perhaps he can develop that too. But obviously, it would be easier to bring somebody in they already know is a known quantity. I'm not even sure that it's that it's Zion. Would Zion be kind of the guy who gets the one more pass on the wing and then kind of breaks everybody down? I don't know how well that fits, honestly. It's interesting now, because would you want to have Zion play center then?
I'm really interested in the point Zion stuff. I think him and Cade I think Cade really needs, I think at certain point, I think Cade will move off ball a little more once they have someone they believe is an elite creator with the ball. One of the things that they really speak about with Cade, and Cade speaks about in his training, his team speaks about, is his ability to play off ball. And you don't get to see it a lot right now,
right?
Because there's just no one else that they can really trust to have the ball in their hands consistently like that. But I believe that at this team's peak, I don't think Cade is at 37 usage. I don't think he's on the ball every single possession like he is now. He can do it, and they're playing well, but I think eventually they'd like to have someone else who can also play on the ball and create for others as well. People always bring up heliocentric offenses. Every heliocentric offense I've seen that's been successful has two guys that can do it. You got CP3 and James Harden. You got Luka and Kyrie. You got LeBron, Kyrie. These guys, you always want to have at least two guys that can do it. So that would be the thing with me with Zion. Now I don't think you'd get away with Zion, Asar, and JD, which is why if they did get Zion, you would then go get like a stretch 5. And I think that would be great. But it's a dream get. It's probably not ever going to happen, but it's like in my dreams.
Sure, I never know. You can always dream. The last thing we can say real briefly is the offense itself. It's I think it's average, in offensive rating. I'm a little bit concerned. I feel like it's just sort of what's the word? It's not that clever to me when I'm watching what they're doing. Like a lot of high pick and rolls for Cade, just sort of spaced and letting him do all the work. Are you concerned about that at all? Do you feel like there could be more tweaks to be added on their stuff to get better shots?
I mean, you kind of referenced it earlier when you talked about Cleveland, like exceeding, like, and getting to this point of like, what did you say, 68, 69 win projection total? Like, eventually, like that is what Cleveland people were talking about with JB, that he was great getting them to a certain point, but then they needed someone else to help them like unlock that next layer offensively, which is what Kenny Atkinson has done for him. So I think maybe in a few years when the Pistons are at the point where they have expectations and they have like, oh, we want to win a championship, we want to, get to the Eastern Conference Finals, that kind of thing. I do think the lack of creativity within the offense could become an issue if JB hasn't developed at that point. Like if he hasn't adjusted his coaching style and kind of added things, maybe got an offensive guy on the staff. Things can change like that. Coaches can get better, but that is something that was why Cleveland did move on from JB, was that lack of creativity on the offensive end. So I agree with you that the offense is very much just Cade pick and roll and Cade, whatever advantage you create, there you go. Like that's basically it. They have tried a little more lately to have Asar run some stuff, which I think would really help with the offense, kind of allow someone else to attack the defense in a different type of way. But they eventually they will need some more creativity, and I think they just need the players too. I'd like to see, once Trajan gets JB a player that also can create like Cade, and maybe or not even just create like Cade, just another offensive heavy guy that they really trust on that end. I'd like to see if maybe then he changes things up a little bit. But yeah, a lot of their offense is just DHO with Duren and Cade, or pick and roll, or every now and then they get the switch with Tobias on a post up and they go to that. Like that's a lot of their offense. So I'd like to see how it looks as the roster changes a little bit moving forward.
For sure. Well, we'll keep our eye on that. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and breaking it down. Just tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. You can also find my podcast, Locked On Pistons podcast, with the Locked On Network, on any podcast platform, also over on YouTube. And if you're ever just trying to chill and watch a Pistons game, you want, all of a sudden you're interested in the Pistons, I host a playback room, watch Pistons as well. We have a ton of people in there. We have a lot of fun watching the game. So you can follow me over there as well. But appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it a ton.
You got it. Well, thanks so much for being here, and thanks everyone else for listening. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Ku?
Absolutely.